What is going on, YouTube? It's Matt Faircloth. My company's called the Derosa Group, and this is our YouTube channel. So Derosa Group is a great real estate investing company. If you guys want to hear more about what we do, or even join our Derosa Insiders community, where you guys can pick my brain on a daily basis on a private Facebook group and have private Facebook sessions, Facebook Live sessions with me and my entire real estate apartment building team, go to derosagroup.com. That is DEROSAGROUP.com, derosagroup.com. And you can join insiders there by going to Derosa Group /insiders, or read about all the other stuff we have going on. Today's video is about security deposits, what they are, what they're used for, and what they're not used for, and also some crazy controversy that just came out because of this guy, Phil Murphy, the governor of New Jersey, who just made this awesome executive order about allowing tenants to request their landlords use a security deposit to pay their next month's rent. More on that later, so watch later in this video when I discuss that, because I'll give you my opinion and my thoughts on Phil Murphy's mandate. And we do own in New Jersey, so we are interested in that, and we're involved in that conversation. So stay tuned for my conversation on that. Let's talk about a security deposit. What is it? A security deposit is an amount of money that a tenant gives you when they move into a rental property that gets held. It's supposed to get held in escrow. It's their money. And it always is their money. When they give it to you, they're really giving it to you to hold as almost as like collateral, like something that you can take. Or if they do damage to the apartment, then you can draw down that collateral. You can take from that security deposit and return them what's left. So, for example, you have an apartment that rents for $1,000 a month. They give you $1,000 security deposit, which is 1 month's rent. They take that, you put it in an interest-bearing account. That money sits in the interest-bearing account while they're living in the apartment. When they move out, they don't clean the apartment, they leave a sofa in the living room. That costs you $100 to remediate. So you then take $100 out of the security deposit and you send them $900 left. Again, it's always their money. It's just there for you to hang on to as just-in-case money, just in case something happens to the apartment. They could owe you some rent when they move out. Whatever it is, you check with your state laws on what you're allowed to charge with security deposit. But a refundable security deposit gets held in an escrow account. Now, so all you landlords out there, you need to take that money and put it in an escrow account, a separate escrow account. It can either be interest bearing or non-interest bearing. And if it does bear interest, that interest belongs to the tenant. As a landlord, what you're not allowed to do is to take that money and put it into your pocket or anything like that. You can't do that. Many landlords do. We are not one of those landlords at the Derosa Group. If you're doing this, and you're a landlord watching, shame, 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 you can get fined for doing this, and you get in a lot of trouble for taking the security deposit and misappropriating it. So that's what a security deposit is. Landlords are allowed to access that money when the tenant leaves the unit. Pretty much that's when the landlord's allowed to touch the money. Aside from that, that money is supposed to sit in an interest-bearing or a non-interest-bearing account over here, away from you, arm's length, for you as the landlord to access and to give back to the tenant if they give you back the unit and don't owe you any money in rent, and didn't do any damage to the apartment. That's their money, and you have to return that to them in most states within 30 days of them moving out. And if they owe you something, owe you back rent for damage to the apartment, whatever it is, you're allowed to draw out of it. That's it. That is when landlords are allowed to touch it. I've had many tenants in my 15 years of business tell me things like, well, just take something out of, take the fee out of the security deposit during their tenancy. Or can you just take this month's rent out of the security deposit? Legally, we're not allowed to do that. The contract does not allow us to do it, unless the tenant allows us to do it in writing and we draw up a written agreement with the tenant, because again, it's their money. Leases typically describe everything the landlord's allowed to do with the security deposit, but for the most part, it's state law on when you can and when you can't touch it. Now, a lease agreement is an agreement between a tenant and a landlord. It's a private agreement. And as long as that agreement abides within the laws of the state, the lease can say pretty much whatever it wants. And now, most leases are going to reference when the landlord can and can't touch the security deposit. The whole thing about the lease being a contract between the tenant and the landlord is something we'll get to again when I comment on this lovely thing from Phil Murphy being able to use their security deposit as rent. If your tenant, before coronavirus, wanted you to use the security deposit for rent, you could just say, no, listen, I'd rather you keep that there. You're not obligated to do that. We have done this when a tenant was in a real bind and they needed us to do it, and we trusted that they had the income coming in the future to pay that security deposit money back. What we've said to them is, Okay, we'll take 1 month's rent into the security deposit. You're going to agree to it right here in this letter in writing. We're both going to sign it. We'll take 1 month's rent out to cover this month's rent. And here is your payment plan to repay that cash back into the security deposit over the next whatever it is. The risk you're taking as a landlord is the tenant could owe you the next month, and then there's not enough in the security deposit account to cover it. Or they could move out sooner than they've paid it all back and do some damage to the apartment, or whatever it is. You've lost that collateral. That's your protection of the tenant damaging your asset, the rental property, or owing you money on the way out the door. That collateral is gone if you take it during the current lease agreement and at that time use it to pay the rent. But you could drop that agreement, which becomes an addendum to the lease and allows you to do it. Now, what Phil Murphy has said is that given coronavirus, and I get he's trying to cover, my empathy for Phil is that he's trying to cover tenants and their ability to just make their obligations. That is something that's there for them. That's their money sitting in the landlord's possession. I understand that tenants may be low on income right now. They might have lost their job, or might be furloughed or laid off or just not working. Whatever it is, I get it. That there is a concern for folks being able to meet their rent obligations. And that money was sitting there. Perhaps they can use it to cover the month of May or to cover whatever month it is. It's all fine. I wish he had relinquished the regulations on it, or at least encouraged landlords to do it. The fact that he mandated it really ties landlords' hands, number one. But the biggest thing that my problem is in this regulation that Phil Murphy put out is that it does not have a payment plan about when the tenants will pay the security deposit back. What it does say is when the lease renews, which could be years from now, a year or more from the time the tenant uses that security deposit, that the tenant has to replenish the security deposit at the time that their lease renews. The security deposit could get used for the next month, and then the month after that, they maybe still don't have the money to pay their rent because they maybe didn't do the right thing with their with other income sources that they may have had, be that unemployment, be that stimulus checks. Perhaps that's not what happened. Whatever it is, then the landlord's stuck. The landlord doesn't have any collateral, doesn't have any money to cover their expenses, and landlords have plenty of expenses to cover rental properties. I have a video we just released called "Why Pay Rent," so watch that on this channel, because almost all of rent does not go to the landlord's pocket. A small fraction of it does. With all that said, the landlords are put at a major risk, which is my concern with this bill, that a lot of my fellow New Jersey landlords are going to be put at risk here, because we're going to be not allowed to have our collateral, and there may be a couple months where the tenant may either move out or have to get evicted or whatever it is, and all our collateral is going to be gone. So landlords are going to take a major loss if a tenant uses security deposit and then ends up not able to get themselves caught back up. It's a shame that happened. It's a shame that at least the mandate could have said tenant can use it, but it needs to be paid back within a certain period of time, or tenant can use it as long as there's a repayment period. Something else on top of that, or other services that the state could have offered to landlords to aid them in other expenses that landlords have in maintaining properties, including property taxes and all other expenses that the state has control over. Property tax is a major one, Phil. One more point, guys. Let's just say that the security deposit gets applied to May rent or June rent, whatever it is. Tenant goes that month, and like I said, for the stimulus check that they got, or the unemployment that they got, whatever it is, doesn't get properly set aside for housing expenses, and they can't pay the following month. So the courts open back up. Tenants then get evicted. On top of that, the tenant maybe does some damage to the apartment. And again, that's what the collateral for the security deposit is there for, is to compensate landlords for damage that the tenant may do to their apartment while they're in the apartment, that they don't repair themselves on their way out the door, right? So their job, the tenant is supposed to return the unit to the landlord in the condition that it was when it was given to them, right? So if they're not able to do that because they damaged the apartment, then the security deposit's there for that. So if a landlord is forced to use the tenant's security deposit to pay a month's rent, then that security deposit is gone. So the landlord may be left with a unit that's got a ton of damage to it and rent owed. Now, I recommend you, New Jersey landlords, do walkthroughs of your apartments, which you're entitled to do in your lease. Do walkthroughs every 30 days just to walk through apartments and check them just to make sure that there's not major damage, Work with the tenant, call them. Hey, are you okay? Or what are we going to do for the next month? Can you fix this? What can we do to repair these damages? Whatever it is that you do. I recommend landlords, if you're forced to use security deposit to cover a month's rent like this, keep an eye on damage to the apartment and stay in regular communication with the tenant on what they're going to do to replenish that security deposit. Although the tenant doesn't have to agree to it, you can ask that the tenant replenish the security deposit over a certain period of time, and you can put something in writing. And if you put it in writing, then it becomes the right of the lease, and then that's a mutual agreement that the tenant did. Now, we also recommend that you guys put something in writing with a repayment plan to the security deposit that you and the tenant can both amicably agree to. A win-win situation. The tenant can, when they get their feet back on the ground, use part of their cash flow to replenish that security deposit. Again, it's not about holding the tenant over a barrel. It's about getting your collateral back so that you've got something for the property. And like I said, walk it every 30 days. A lot to unpack here, guys. But again, this is something that as our rights as landlords, it's being, I think, impinged upon a little bit by the state of New Jersey without really covering the other side of the equation, which is landlords who provide tons of housing for people. And most of us are good people. There's not most New Jersey landlords are good people just trying to make a living. I know there's a few that are bad ones that give the rest of us a bad name, but most of us are good folks just trying to take care of people and provide housing for people. That's my 2 cents. Please, please, please. I'm sure this will generate lots of comments. So leave them in the comment section below, and feel free to like and share this if you've got other New Jersey landlords that you think ought to take a look and hear what they have to say about this new thing that came down from the state of New Jersey. That's what security deposits are. Those are my takes on Phil Murphy. Just okay, Phil, I get it. Hope you're well, guys. Have a great and profitable week. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you like what we had to say. Here's a few other videos you might like, so check these out too. And if you want to join our Insiders community and get a big basket of goodies, just send a text message to 66866. Text the word Derosa, D-E-R-O-S-A, to 66866. You can join Insiders. You're going to get a big basket of free goodies sent right to your email. So to text that right now to 66866, the word Derosa. Thanks for watching.